Let me start by saying I don't normally do car reviews, but today I got the opportunity to drive this Renault Clio Turbo.
Renault 8 Gordini there, electronic car, Revit. Sounds like you're swimming, so that's about GTR.
Welcome to another episode of All Talk with me, Dan Pearson, and today I'm back in a Renault RS. Let's go! I'm interested to see how this car compares to the earlier Renault Clio 197s and the Renault Clio 200s. I've not driven this car before, the first time in, so you're getting my real world reaction. I've already found an app that controls the sounds inside the car, which is cheesy as hell, but you know, I like it. I'm now a Renault Sport Clio, I'm now a Renault Sport V6 Clio, or at least it's meant to sound like that. Whether or not that actually works, I don't know. Nicola's behind me in the Audi TT, the Roadster, and I'm now going to give this a little bit of a whirl and see what I think. I think I'm going to change the sounds on this first of all. What should I change the sounds to? I now sound like a GTR. Let's give it a go. It doesn't go like a GTR though. You know, I quite like that. It's cheesy, but it's good. So interior wise, what do I think to this? Well, it feels a lot more solid than the Clio 197 does, and also the Clio 200. The plastics are definitely better and the seats are a lot more comfortable. It's a really nice place to be, but that's not really why you're buying one of these, so I'm not really sure how bothered I am by that. The dashboard layout is quite nice. Everything's relatively easy to see, apart from the fact that this steering wheel is obstructing my view of the gauge cluster. This is the first time that I've driven it, and I'm not interested in all of the technical specification for once, because you know something, it doesn't matter right now. What I want to find out is whether or not I like this car as much as I like a Clio 197 or a 200. I can get past him here, let's go! Fourth gear pull. I'm gonna have to be hard on the brakes. Down into third on the... There's plenty of grip and it feels composed-ish. It's a little bit bumpy on this road. The damping's a little bit off. So, into third, into fourth, back down to third, just gently tease this through. I like it. Does it feel as urgent as a 182? No. But I know this road really well, and I've driven this road a lot with 182s and 197s, and it definitely gets down this road a little bit quicker, I think. That was interesting. That's the first time I've really actually got to give it a little bit of stick. Let's play around a little bit more, and now let's activate the RS button. Renault Sport. Fully activated. Get the little green sign come up on the dash, just to let you know that you're about to go a little bit psycho. And let's see how much of a difference that little button makes to this car. Got the Renault Sport button engaged now. The brakes are really firm and reassuring. Brake pedal feels absolutely on the money. Second gear corner. Onto a bit of a long straight now. This bit of road here is really bumpy like that. It's really crashy. And the car, yeah, it is crashy over the bumps. But this is a really testing piece of road without a shadow of a doubt. Wow, unsettled the car quite a bit there. Oh, hard on the brakes. Oh, I've just thrown the camera. Oops. Whoops. There's a fair amount of torque steer, to be fair, at lower speeds. The brakes are genuinely very confidence inspiring, and I've just gone too fast into this corner. That was close. I hit that corner a little bit too hard, and actually, testament to this Clio, that was okay. It's really stable under hard braking. Yeah, I did run wide on that corner, totally and utterly messed that up. But anyway, that's another story. We'll leave that for now. Let's move on. One thing I am finding with this so far is that the performance is a lot more accessible than the 197 for sure. It definitely doesn't feel as urgent, but the torque is just so much stronger lower down the rev range that it's easy to concentrate on trying to place the car and not worrying so much about having to rev the hell out of it to get out of the apex of a corner. Okay, I kind of like that. That is nice. You can tell that somebody has played with this car who is a driver. It's definitely been made to be a driver's car. Finding myself a lot of the time between gears on these B roads. It's rapid, actually. It feels quick, but it's quicker point to point. It's the reality. It's definitely quicker point to point than the 197 for sure. The performance is there more of the time with that turbo. It's on these long straights, it really feels like the car's lacking. Just doesn't feel like it has that sense of urgency that something like the 197 had, and particularly the 182. The 182 just feels rapid. It feels more exciting to drive. Second gear, third, fourth's quite a long gear. Hard on the brakes into this corner, and that's not scrubbing. Do you know something? The brakes are starting to fade. The brakes are starting to fade. I don't know what pads are on this car. We're in full race mode. If you'd bought this and you'd not bought a 197, or you've not driven a 197 or a 182, this would be a pretty exciting car, and you would think and agree that this is actually very, very capable, because it is. So the traction control's off, back onto that bumpy section again, which is quite long and quite straight. We're in second gear, we're doing 2,500 revs. I do have to feather the throttle to get the power down, but this is a relatively loose surface. There's a little bit of gravelly on top here, and again I find myself kind of between gears. You can see how much the car's getting shaken about on this road. There's a really sharp, tight left-hand bend at the end here, hard down onto the brakes, and the brakes have, quite frankly, the brakes are getting hammered. The brakes have faded quite a bit. This is a little right-hand corner. There's plenty of grip and the steering's precise without a shadow of a doubt. Just hit the limiter again, and that's because it's just not as willing to rev as I want it to be. That spoils the car for me a little bit. I've just changed into third because I needed to, but I'm then into a second gear corner. This is where a 197, I wouldn't have to do this. I'd have more revs to play with. I'm now in fourth, and I really felt like I should be in third, but I know there's a straight coming up and I'm going to end up changing gears again. This gearbox just isn't great. These brakes are just cooked. So what am I thinking so far with this car? Well, looks wise, I'm not really a fan. It's not as pretty as a 197, and it's not as old school as a 182. Feels and looks very much like a family hatchback rather than a hot hatch, and all of the little bits and trims that they've put onto it still don't really salvage that fact for me completely. The handling is really very good. It's very Renault. It's precise, it's agile, it's responsive. It feels lively enough without being OTT lively, but it's a little bit bouncy on some of those roads. Not quite as, I don't know, not quite as agile as maybe a 182 is, and not as composed as a 197 in some ways. Maybe that's just me because I'm not familiar with the car and I've not got used to it yet, but either way, that's my first impression. Obviously, one of the big advantages of this car is meant to be the fuel economy, and at first I thought this was really being a problem, but I'm now told that actually this is a common problem with the fuel gauges on these cars. They get stuck. I'd put 20 quid of fuel into this car and it was still showing really low, and I felt, have I used all of that? Now that I've put a little bit more in, the gauge has come back up, it's unstuck itself, and actually at the moment in time it's now showing half a tank, and I've blattered about in this all morning. So in the grand scheme of things, yeah, these are meant to be around 25% or 30% more economical really than something like the 197 or the 182, and that's quite a big improvement, and definitely a worthwhile improvement if that is the case, because owning hot hatches, you tend to have your foot down quite a lot and you tend to go through quite a lot of fuel. So how would I describe this Clio to you compared to the previous versions? Well, this is a Turkish delight, and this is a Rolo. Now, these are both hot hatchers in the traditional sense of the word, but this is the Clio Turbo, and this is the Clio 182. And in between, there's maybe a Twix with a little bit extra, and that's probably the 197. And whilst this is the worst analogy that I've ever given you, the Turkish delight tastes a little bit different. It's a bit more exciting. It's not going to please as many people as a Rolo, but it's just that little bit better. And that's how I feel about the 182. It's just a little bit more, as is the 197. This is a little bit too soft in many ways, despite the fact it's better in just about every way. I still prefer the Turkish delight. So, in conclusion, what do I think to this Renault Clio Turbo? Well, yes, it's very much an RS Clio in the same vein as the 200, the 197 and the 182 were. It's very much a B-road warrior. It's very much better in almost every way than the 200, the 197 or the 182. But despite all of that, it's not actually the one that I want to drive. This is missing some key components that make the 182 very special. And it's even missing some components from the 197. It just doesn't have that willingness to rev in the same way that the naturally aspirated engines do. And at the same time, this gearbox option for me is a little bit of a killer. I much prefer to have the manual gearbox in either of those cars. That is it for today. The fan's just switched off finally, so the car's cooling down. I will see you in the next episode. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please do so. Smash that subscribe button, punch it in the face, make sure that you click the bell icon, and I will see you next time. Take care.